criminal defense attorney Vinoo Varghese joins us now. Mr. Varghese, thanks for being with us. It certainly feels like we have been here before with the former president. You say you're skeptical that he will be indicted. Why?
Well, I think it's a very, look, all of this seems political in nature. The idea that you're going to invite someone to testify in the grand jury is actually a bogus claim, because these kind of indictments, this is something particular to New York State law. A person has a right to testify in a New York State grand jury if he's been charged already on a complaint. Donald Trump has not been charged. So the idea of the invitation, well, let me take a step back. This is supposed to be a secret proceeding. No one should know that a grand jury has been convened, and yet conveniently the Manhattan DA's office has announced, or there's word of this grand jury proceeding. So at no point is Donald Trump going to testify. His lawyers are not going to let him. I wouldn't let him if I were his lawyer. But the idea that they're inviting him, silly. Either subpoena him to testify in the grand jury and then make him take the fifth. But there's no such thing as an invitation to the grand jury.
So let me ask it this way, because I used to cover organized crime, and I was stunned to find out that even when it came to organized crime, mobsters, they would get a target letter from the federal government saying, you are now the target of our investigation. Would it be better if the government just sent him a target letter and said, get ready because you're probably going to be indicted?
I mean, the state, first of all, New York State doesn't do anything like that. They don't send letters indicating that you are a target. The Attorney General's office sometimes has something similar to that, but not the District Attorney's office. So when they haven't charged you, they haven't arrested you, but they want to present evidence in a more complex case, they're supposed to do so secretly. You're not supposed to have an idea that this is going on. But you know, this is, again, it's a procedural quirk particular to New York. You don't have a right to testify as a target or as a prospective defendant in a federal grand jury. But all in all, look, this comes right on the heels of former Special Assistant District Attorney Mark Pomerantz and his book criticizing the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg for not bringing charges against Donald Trump last year, or squashing the investigation into Trump and his inflation of his property values. He didn't bring it. This seems like a stretch. The other thing that they have a problem with, and I'm not sure how they get around this, is that the hush money payment to the porn star was made in 2016. It is now 2023. You have a 5-year statute of limitations on felonies. You have a 2-year statute of limitations on misdemeanors. So either they have something creative, or they're going to bring it, or what could happen is that Alvin Bragg is trying to deflect criticism of the fact that he didn't bring an indictment previously, knowing he's going to bring these charges, which are unsustainable, and maybe not even get an indictment, but say that he did get tried.
Let me push you on that. And I'm going to speak for the little guy right now. We just watched a trial of a man in South Carolina convicted of killing his wife and his son. The judge at sentencing said if this had been anybody else in this courtroom, they probably would have gotten the death penalty. In fact, you probably have sent people to jail for that. Why is it so much of a stretch to think that a former president of the United States accused of providing hush money to a porn star shouldn't face criminal charges when every John and Jane Doe out there would go to jail for far lesser crimes?
I think those are false equivalencies, no offense. I mean,
they're not false equivalent. I think the question is why, what, no, the question is what makes,
I think the judge was a little bit
if everybody is equal in the eyes of the law, why is this case different than it would be if anybody else had been caught with the same evidence that this particular person had been caught with?
Well, there are thousands and thousands of people who do this. The DA's office doesn't bring cases against thousands and thousands of people for this type of crime. In fact, they're selective on who they're going to prosecute on this type of crime.
Anthony Weiner was drummed out of office because he sent photographs. He sexted somebody. I mean, we have seen people drummed out of office for far less.
Well, Anthony Weiner texted a picture of his private parts to a teenager, and he was charged federally for that. and he went to jail. Now he's back out. I'm not sure what that has to do with President Trump. Who?
No, I'm just saying, why are you so skeptical that this case should not be brought?
It's under. Look, the feds didn't bring a case. Michael Cohen said he did this at the direction of the president, right? And then ultimately he ended up pleading guilty, and there was no federal case brought when it could have been brought, or the minute that he left office. This seems to me beyond suspect at this point, particularly in light of all the criticisms Alvin Bragg has received from the Mark Pomerantz and the publication of his book. Pomerantz was on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago. This is something that's going to dog Alvin Bragg. And I think if he goes, I mean, look, until I see Donald Trump in handcuffs, I don't believe there's going to be an indictment.
I got 10 seconds.
Tried.
I can only take a yes or a no, but is it okay that Michael Cohen went to prison, sentenced to 3 years for the same crime, and the person that he did it for won't get any jail time? Is that okay, yes or no?
Well, there's no way to answer that because it's not the same crime. So it's a different situation than what's being investigated here by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and in the New York State grand jury.
Vinoo Varghese, I want to thank you for being with us from New York. Thank you.
My pleasure.